Number 6. AU8A Avenger. The General Electric AU8A Avenger on the United States Air Force's Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II is an inspiring example of military engineering. This 30mm hydraulically driven 7-barrel Gatling-style autocannon was designed in the 1970s and is synonymous with raw power and precision. Not only is it a pivotal component of the A-10 aircraft, but it's also a crucial element of the Goalkeeper CIWS ship weapon system, underscoring its versatility in defending against multiple kinds of short-range threats. Developed alongside the AX competition that produced marvels like the A-10, the AU8 was a response to a need for a high-powered cannon capable of destroying ground targets. The cannon specification, laid out in 1970, led to the competing design put out by General Electric and Philco Ford. Both the YA-10 and the Northrop YA-9 prototypes were designed to incorporate this weapon, although the initial competition saw the use of the M61 Vulcan as a temporary stand-in. Weighing 620 pounds on its own, the AU8A's total assembly, including the feed system and drum, weighs 4,029 pounds when fully loaded up with ammunition. This weight makes up for about 16% of the A-10 aircraft's unladen mass, highlighting the cannon's critical role in the aircraft's design and overall balance. The gun's positioning slightly to the port side, with the firing barrel on the starboard end at the 9 o'clock position, is a strategic choice as well to maintain the aircraft's center of gravity. Equipped with twin hydraulic motors, the AU8A can hold about 1,174 rounds in its magazine, typically loaded with a 5-to-1 mix of armor-piercing and high-explosive incendiary rounds. The armor-piercing rounds incorporate depleted uranium, offering immense penetration power. This devastating firepower was proven effective against M47 Patton tanks in tests done in 1979. The AU8A's rate of fire was initially selectable between 2,100 and 4,200 rounds per minute, but later raised to 3,900 rounds per minute. This rate allows for sustained fire, but is often limited in practice to short bursts to conserve ammunition and maintain the barrel's life. The gun's linkless ammunition feed and double-ended design contribute to its reliability and efficiency. Accuracy is another important hallmark of the AU8A, with a precision rating that ensures the majority of rounds hit within a specific area. Its recoil force, significant yet manageable, is well balanced by the aircraft's design and firepower, enabling the A-10 to maintain course while firing. The AU8A Avenger stands as a testament to military innovation, playing a crucial role in close air support missions as well as ground attacks. Its formidable presence on the battlefield continues to be a defining feature of the A-10 Thunderbolt II, confirming its status as one of the most influential weapons in modern aerial warfare. Number 5. The Cornershot. The Cornershot, which emerged in the global war on terror, epitomizes the evolution of modern warfare tactics and weapons technology. Conceived by Israeli Defense Force Lieutenant Colonel Amos Goran, the Cornershot is a remarkable invention designed to enhance the safety and efficiency of police and military operations. It allows its users to engage threats around corners without fully exposing themselves, a significant tactical advantage in urban combat scenarios. At its core, the Cornershot is not a weapon, but a sophisticated platform housing a weapon. It's a rifle-sized frame with a stock and a unique hinging front, capable of securing a variety of firearms like handguns. The hinged clamp of the Cornershot can also accommodate short AK and AR variants without stocks, and even a 40mm launcher that fires grenades and less lethal rounds. A key feature of the Cornershot is the mounted camera at its hinge, which transmits a live video feed to a screen in the operator's line of sight. This setup allows the user to see and aim around corners from a protected spot. The camera feed includes crosshairs for targeting, and the hinge swings to either side, offering versatility in many combat situations. Despite its innovative design, the Cornershot has several limitations. Its size and structure resembles a rifle without equivalent ballistic capabilities, restricting it to use in specific scenarios around corner engagements. The device is cumbersome in open combat, lacking the balance and ease of use a standard rifle offers. Also, aiming through a small camera screen poses difficult challenges in target identification and engagement. In the 2 decades since the War on Terror began, close-quarters battle tactics have evolved. reducing the reliance on specialized equipment like the Cornershot. The rise of small drones and UAVs has offered alternative means for reconnaissance and corner surveillance. Additionally, the Cornershot's reliance on batteries poses logistical challenges in extended operations. While the device has been used by law enforcement, its practicality in military operations is limited by more straightforward, efficient tools. In conclusion, while the Cornershot is an interesting idea, its practical application remains dismal. It stands as a fascinating piece of equipment in the arsenal of modern warfare technology, yet overshadowed by the emergence of new, more efficient weapons. Before we continue, if you're joining us for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button to unlock more incredible videos. And don't keep your thoughts to yourself. Drop a comment down below and tell us what you'd like to see from us next. Number 4. Adaptive Camouflage System. The Adaptive Camouflage System, developed by BAE Systems, represents a groundbreaking advancement in military tech. Similar to the fictional cloaking devices seen in science fiction movies, this innovative system is designed to make tanks and other large military vehicles practically invisible to enemy thermal imaging systems, offering a significant advantage on the battlefield. Conceived and patented in Sweden first, Adaptive was born from a project commissioned by FMV and the Swedish Defense Material Administration. BAE Systems in Örnsköldsvik was given the task to create a full-scale technology capable of rendering land vehicles undetectable to enemy thermal sensors. A dedicated team of 7 people, specializing in multiple fields like software, sensors, electronics, and design, embarked on a journey of 3 years filled with intensive research to bring this idea to fruition. The technology behind Adaptive is as fascinating as it is complicated. The system utilizes modules that resemble honeycomb cells to cover the flanks of an armored vehicle. These modules are made up of elements that can be rapidly heated or cooled down and controlled individually, letting the vehicle display different patterns and blend in seamlessly with its surroundings. This chameleon-like ability enables the vehicle to mimic the temperature of many terrains, from deserts to forests and urban landscapes, or even take on the appearance of objects like cars, cows, or natural features such as rocks. Also, Adaptive allows for more than just simple camouflage. It can be used to communicate peaceful intentions or identification to friendly forces by displaying messages or recognizable patterns on the vehicle's backside. The system can even project detailed images from an image bank onto its panels, transforming a tank into a benign object to signal allies. Looking ahead, Adaptive's potential extends far beyond land vehicles. Plans are underway to adapt this technology for both maritime and air vehicles, potentially enabling a helicopter to blend into a cloud or a warship to look like a wave. The flexibility of the pixel size in the system's design means it can be tailored for several different ranges and objects. Larger objects like buildings or warships that require stealth from a distance could be fitted with larger panels to display lower resolution images. As Adaptive continues to evolve and grow, it may very well redefine the future of stealth technology in military settings, blurring the lines existing between fiction and reality. Number 3. The Active Denial System. The Active Denial System, ADS, stands as an interesting example of non-lethal weaponry, utilizing advanced technology to create a different effect without causing lethal harm. Developed by the Joint Intermediate Force Capabilities Office, the ADS, or the heat weapon, operates mainly by emitting focused beams of radio waves at a frequency of about 95 GHz. This system is designed to penetrate only a thin layer of the skin, making it a tool for dispersion and crowd control instead of a deadly weapon. The ADS works by generating a strong sensation of intense heat on the skin without causing physical harm. When the waves, which are not infrared beams, contact the skin, they create a painful sensation similar to getting burned, although there is no actual burning happening. This discomfort stops the moment an individual moves out of the beam's direct path, leaving no physical marks or lasting injuries. This feature makes the ADS a unique addition to the arsenal of options available for both crowd control and riot suppression. But the use of a system like this is not without its controversies and ethical consideration. The idea of inducing a feeling of burning, even temporarily, can be very unsettling. This has raised several questions about the appropriateness of its use in some scenarios, especially in contexts where non-lethal force is necessary. The ADS challenges the norms often associated with conventional weaponry, navigating a thin line between effectiveness and ethics. The ADS has also undergone rigorous testing, including trials on a few volunteers, and there had been reports of 2 burn injuries taking place during its development stages in 1999 and 2007. Despite its potential, there remains uncertainty about its operational use. As the latest reports, the ADS has not been deployed, nor is it part of the Marine Corps' active inventory. The future of the ADS is yet to be determined. While it offers a non-lethal alternative and could potentially reduce the need for more harmful measures, the psychological impact and the ethical implications of its use remain topics of debate. As technology continues to advance, the ADS represents a case study in balancing innovation with responsible application in the realm of public safety. Number 2. IAWS. The XM-25 Individual Airburst Weapon System, or IAWS, represents a significant advancement in infantry armament. It offers a unique solution for engaging hidden targets. Developed together by Heckler & Koch and Alliant Tech Systems, or ATK, with the Target Acquisition Fire Control System developed by L3 IOS Brashear, the XM-25 has been designed to address a tactical challenge faced by soldiers in combat scenarios, neutralizing enemies who are protected by walls, foxholes, or similar types of cover. The XM-25 distinguishes itself mainly through its sophisticated aiming system. This system utilizes a thermal optic, day sight, laser rangefinder, compass, and infrared illuminator with a fire control system. This advanced tech allows the weapon to wirelessly transmit the range of the target to the 25mm rounds fuse before it fires. The result is a grenade that can be programmed to explode mid-air at a precise distance, allowing soldiers to target hiding enemies without direct line of sight. This capability reduces the risk of collateral damage usually associated with rockets, mortars, or traditional grenades. Featuring a low-velocity 25 by 40mm grenade, the XM-25 has an effective range of up to 500 meters for point targets and 700 meters for area targets. It operates as a gas-operated semi-automatic weapon, weighing about 14 pounds, making it portable and powerful. The XM-25 is also equipped with a 4x thermal sight with zoom capabilities, a 2x direct view optical sight, a ballistic computer, a digital compass, and a laser rangefinder, all of which contribute to its precision. Each unit of this grenade launcher rifle is estimated to cost about $25,000, a figure comparable to the cost of a fully loaded M4 outfitted with optics and pointers. The 25mm rounds manufactured by ATK are priced at $25 each. The XM-25's development underscores the evolution of infantry weapons, focusing on increased accuracy, reduced collateral damage, and enhanced effectiveness in diverse situations. By enabling soldiers to engage concealed targets with high precision, the XM-25 represents a major leap forward in small arms technology, poised to change the dynamics of ground combat and providing troops with significant tactical advantages. Number 1. Taser Shockwave. The Taser Shockwave represents a significant development in non-lethal crowd control technologies. While the handheld Taser X3 has made waves in personal defense, the Taser Shockwave is designed for situations that require area denial or riot control, showcasing the scalability of this stun gun technology. Essentially, the Taser Shockwave is a modular system clustering 6 Taser X26 stun guns. This configuration lets it cover a 20-degree arc with cartridges that have a range of 25 feet. One of the critical features of the Shockwave is its ability to fire all 6 charges at once through a control box, delivering a 5-second Taser neuromuscular incapacitation effect. This effect temporarily overrides the body, causing immediate incapacitation and sending targets straight to the ground. Designed mainly for crowd control in violent situations, the Shockwave's modularity is one of its strengths. Multiple units can be stacked up vertically for multiple salvos over a smaller area or horizontally to extend its coverage. Also, the area coverage can be expanded by chaining units together. In scenarios involving multiple units, an intelligent networking system makes sure that each Shockwave knows its position within the array, optimizing their overall effectiveness. Operationally, the Taser Shockwave system prioritizes its user's safety. It can be activated remotely from a distance of up to 100 meters using the control box, which maintains the lithium battery packs in a constant state of readiness. A single control box can also manage up to 12 Shockwave units, a feature that enhances its applicability in large-scale operations. The Shockwave is designed not to just incapacitate targets initially, but to deliver an extra 5-second shock to ensure they remain subdued. The versatility of the system extends to its mounting capabilities, since it can be attached to a vehicle, broadening its utility in mobile operations. Available in single, triple, and 6-unit kits, the Taser Shockwave is a controversial but innovative tool. While it can provoke discussions about the ethics of crowd control, it presents an alternative to harmful measures like rubber or real bullets, positioning itself as a much safer option in managing large, unruly crowds or riots. Its development and deployment highlight the evolving nature of non-lethal weapon technologies in law enforcement and public safety.
China is one of the world's most populated countries, with a total population of 1.41 billion people and growing. Yet, it has a massive problem when it comes to its housing and real estate market. While you might think the problem is that there simply aren't enough houses for such a large population, you would be completely wrong. In fact, the answer is completely the opposite. Every year, China starts building 15 million new homes. And to put this into perspective, it's 5 times more than the US and Europe combined. As a result, the country has entire cities that are barely populated, and in some cases, no one lives there at all. It's not a small problem either. Around 20% of all urban residential properties in China are left empty. And to put that into perspective, that's enough houses and apartments for every single person in the entire country of France to be able to live in. Could you imagine living on a street where you'd only find a family living in 1 out of every 5 homes? These ghost towns in China have been extensively documented. One notable instance is a 2013 segment on China's deserted urban areas, featured on CBS's 60 Minutes. The report began with correspondent Leslie Stahl standing on a major road during rush hour, yet there were scarcely any cars in sight. In 2015, photographer Kai Camera embarked on a journey to China to capture the essence of these ghost cities. His pictures portray seemingly endless rows of high-rises with minimal signs of human activity, reminiscent of the eerily quiet urban landscapes witnessed during the global lockdowns amid the coronavirus pandemic. These aren't just small occurrences either, as experts believe that there are at least 50 cities that can be classified as ghost towns in this way. With China having 687 documented cities within its borders, this means that around 7% of its cities are barely populated at all. Interestingly though, a lot of these ghost cities, as they're often called, aren't exactly run-of-the-mill places and usually have a lot to offer prospective occupants. Most of them have well-connected infrastructure and roads, good access to public services, and lots of public spaces like parks and retail centers. But some of them take things a step further, with some truly unique cities that have global inspiration. Now, let's go over some of the most interesting ones, and don't forget to let us know which one you'd move into in the comments down below. One of the most famous ghost cities in China is Tiandusheng, which has been constructed to be a replica of Paris, complete with buildings with mock Parisian facades and even its own Eiffel Tower. The city, although deserted, with around 2,000 residents in a 10,000 capacity location, has proven popular for wedding photos for couples who can't get to the real thing. Although, apparently, the population here is finally on the up. China's also taken inspiration from the UK by creating a city known as Thames Town. This place has English-style brick buildings, red telephone boxes, pubs, statues of well-known fictional British figures like Harry Potter and Paddington Bear, and even its own fish and chip shop. So, it's no surprise that when it was first offered to buyers in 2006, it was immensely popular. But despite people snapping up the properties as investment opportunities, no one really moved into them, leaving the restaurants to close without any customers, and the city just becoming a massive investment plot. Donggui Town looks like a cross between Switzerland and northern Italy, and although it's not technically a town, it's a long street of bars and restaurants designed in a European style, complete with its own watchtowers. Again, due to the lack of occupation in the area, this had to close, along with many other theme parks and attractions that also face the same problem as China's new cities. It's not just themed towns and settlements that suffer from the ghost city curse either. Even cities intended to be new financial districts, or simply residential hubs to take the strain off of big cities like Shanghai and Beijing, can end up being deserted. Take Yuzhapu for example, a city that was built in northern China to serve as a financial hub in the area. Designed with a booming economy in mind, it features skyscrapers, shopping malls, and government buildings. However, almost 10 years have gone by since Yuzhaipu's construction, and still its population is so low that it is deemed a ghost town. One of the more famous Chinese ghost towns is called Ordos. Built in the Inner Mongolian region of the country, Ordos was designed so that 300,000 people could comfortably live there. But the people who actually ended up calling the city home only numbered around 2,000. This led to Ordos looking like some sort of deserted apocalyptic landscape, making it popular with photographers. Documentary makers who are keen to show the extent of China's housing crisis, as well as the surreal images it's managed to create, also flock here. As one of the largest ghost cities, the Chinese government in recent years has been seeking to rectify the state of Ordos to help it become a thriving city like it was meant to be. They've done this by starting to bring top schools and universities into the city, so that students and families looking to give their children a good location would move there. Would you ever think about moving to Ordos? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. Now, let's get back into it. So what exactly happened to get China into this housing crisis? Well, real estate used to be considered a secure and lucrative investment in China. The government actively promoted property investment as the real estate market played a crucial role in boosting the nation's wealth and household income through consistently rising property values. The communist government generates substantial revenue, reaching billions of dollars from land sales and the profits of the property market. This dependence on real estate is rooted in the Chinese constitution, which says that all land in the country is owned by the state. So, as a consequence, when developers wish to construct buildings on a piece of land, they must lease it from the government, typically by participating in local land auctions. Property investment is so prevalent in China because people in the country are much less likely to invest in stocks and shares. In the US, around 52% of people own stocks, and 65% have their own home or property. On the other hand, only 7% of China's population has stocks, but 90% of them own homes and properties. This includes their millennials, with 70% of them being homeowners or having a property portfolio, when many in the US struggle to get on the housing ladder. The real estate boom in China hasn't only spurred massive infrastructure development, but has also led to significant shifts in where the population is living. Over 60% of China's massive population of 1.4 billion now live in urban areas like towns and cities. But even then, many cities aren't as busy as they should be. Another statistic that makes this property construction and investment boom all the more crazy to believe is when we look at the concrete usage of both countries. Between 2010 and 2013, China used more concrete than the US did over the entirety of the 20th century. For a while, property investment was booming, with developers scrambling to build more and more houses. But as time wore on, the demand for investment properties shrunk, and in its wake, countless empty towns and cities emerged. Properties simply became too expensive as investment opportunities, and an aging population already had existing portfolios that they didn't want to add to. In many ways, the real estate problem in China is a ticking time bomb. Although the country hasn't seen a crash the likes of which the US and Western Europe experienced in 2008, or Japan in the 1990s, it seems almost inevitable that such an event will happen here too. And one key factor that makes economists around the world feel like this is all too likely is the Evergrande Crisis. Evergrande is a housing development company that's based in China. It started from humble beginnings when Hui Kaiyan, a steel worker by trade, decided to start borrowing money from the bank to buy plots of land from the government. From there, he would then sell the potential homes on the plot before they were even built, and then use the money earned to pay off the bank loan, construct the houses, and push forward to the next project. This strategy really paid off for Hui Ka-yan, and as a result, he went from a simple blue-collar worker in rural China in the 1990s to the country's richest man within just 2 decades. After just a few years, he had earned the right to eat at some of China's top establishments, rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous, and even earned himself a position on the prestigious Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. The soccer team that he bought, Guangzhou Evergrande, managed to win Asia's top league in the sport in 2013. He hired scores of attractive female assistants and even threw cash up into the air as a form of entertainment at his offices. He only hired the very best, with the company offering 3 times the average salary than other real estate companies. He also kept himself involved in almost all decision-making in the company, including final sign-off on all land acquisitions, which he could have easily delegated to his top team. He proved himself to be a powerful entity, both in and outside of his business, with many not daring to oppose him even when it came to the company basketball games. Evergrande boasts an extensive portfolio comprising over 1,300 developments scattered across 280 cities in China, providing homes for a staggering 12 million people. But in actual reality, his company, China Evergrande Group, was in more trouble than it seemed on the surface. The way that the company's business model worked meant that it would always be reliant on investors and moneylenders to keep itself going as plots and projects became bigger and bigger. This was because the loans were then paid back by selling off the potential properties to be placed on the plots. And if they weren't snapped up quickly enough or not bought at all, Evergrande would be at a deficit that could easily start to snowball. With the company ending up more and more in debt, it resorted to some pretty strange strategies to try and keep itself afloat. Staff working for the company were asked to buy financial products from the company, with the proceeds helping to fund the company's main property business. They even had their bonuses docked if they failed to purchase enough to meet a quote that was set for all of the employees. Even the Chinese government itself, one of the primary reasons Hui Ka-yan had been able to start his empire in the first place, started to raise concerns about the sheer amount of borrowing that was going on in the real estate market. Consequently, they put in heavy restrictions on offering financing to businesses that already had several loans. And Evergrande was one of those businesses affected. With more and more banks and lenders refusing to work with the company, they needed to find options that would allow them to keep operating. This is when Evergrande turned to trust firms to finance it. Trust firms are often referred to as shadow banks, as they can operate similarly but without many of the regulations that commercial banks are tied to. This made them the perfect candidates for solving Evergrande's money woes, and they knew it, offering much higher interest rates while knowing that the company, like many others, simply had no option but to agree to them. The debt that the company was in continued to skyrocket to record levels. In 2021, it had amassed over $300 billion in debt, something which you'd be more likely to attribute to an entire country rather than just a single enterprise. And this makes it the most indebted company the world has ever seen. This financial strain is further compounded by the precarious situation of 1.6 million undelivered apartments, and Evergrande has been consistently failing to meet its bond payment obligations. Evergrande faced additional troubles when it failed to meet the payment deadlines for its financial products, causing widespread protests throughout the country. In a tumultuous event at the company's offices in Shenzhen in September 2021, around 100 displeased investors gathered in the lobby, demanding repayment and creating chaotic scenes. But even despite this, Evergrande is a drop in the ocean when it comes to the full extent of China's real estate crisis and ghost cities. There are far bigger companies out there with more market share who are continuing to build, and who knows when the bubble will burst for them too. All we know is that the Chinese government is intent on this not happening. But it's not through regulating the real estate that it's been able to stave off a housing market crash for so long. It was simply through the workings of the housing market itself. The government strategy involves creating formidable obstacles to completing property sales, effectively discouraging homeowners from selling. The Chinese government has the authority to intervene in transactions by altering the minimum ownership duration for a home, or withholding a certificate of sale if property prices are deemed too low. Experts believe that while significant price drops may not be immediately obvious, there could be a substantial decline in transaction volume due to government interference. By halting sales, the government aims to avert the appearance of a sharp price decrease and prevent a potential market crash. However, this approach has a downside, particularly for individuals reliant on selling their homes to access cash. Real estate constitutes a significant portion of people's wealth, and those in need of funds for purposes such as education, healthcare, or retirement could face challenges due to reduced liquidity resulting from suppressed home sales. Those with only one property face the most risk, and of course, the answer to this in China's economy is simply to try to buy another one.
4. Glowworm vs. Admiral Hipper. On April 8, 1940, off the coast of Norway, the British destroyer HMS Glowworm engaged in a fierce naval battle with a German heavy cruiser, Admiral Hipper, marking one of the most brutal naval actions of World War II. HMS Glowworm, a G-class destroyer, was initially deployed during the Spanish Civil War to enforce neutrality. In 1938, she joined the Mediterranean Fleet, but was later transferred back to England in anticipation of the impending conflict. In April 1940, Glowworm was involved in Operation Wilfred, a mine-laying operation aimed at deterring German naval forces while they prepared to invade Norway. KMS Admiral Hipper, a German heavy cruiser, had been commissioned in April 1939 and was part of the invasion force for Norway. The two ships' paths crossed when Glowworm was escorting the British battlecruiser HMS Renown, and dense fog obscured the vessels. Glowworm initially mistook Admiral Hipper for a friendly ship, allowing the German cruiser to close in and open fire. During the intense battle that followed, Glowworm suffered significant damage, losing her forward gun and other key parts of the ship. Despite her dire situation, Lieutenant Commander Gerald Broadmead Roop, Glowworm's captain, refused to surrender. Instead, he chose to fight to the end. Roop launched a barrage of torpedoes at close range, which Admiral Hipper narrowly avoided. And in the midst of this maneuver, Glowworm collided with the much larger German cruiser, causing significant harm to the ship. Despite the damage, the crew of Glowworm continued to fire back until their ship eventually sank. Roop's courageous actions earned him a posthumous Victoria Cross, the highest British military decoration. Admiral Hipper survived the encounter and continued to serve until 1945. The Battle of the Glowworm demonstrated the determination and bravery of the British military, leaving a lasting impression on the Germans and earning their respect for the tenacity of the small but defiant British nation. 3. The Battle of the Atlantic. The Battle of the Atlantic was an exhaustive and fierce battle between the Allied powers and the Axis powers from 1939 until 1945, when Germany surrendered. The Allied powers hoped to free the Atlantic and the seas around Europe, and their plan included blockading Germany. The Axis powers wanted nothing more than to disrupt the Atlantic and surrounding seas to make shipping of supplies more difficult. But the Allies knew that allowing the Axis powers to win the Battle of the Atlantic would be a major disaster in their war efforts. When the fighting began in 1939, the British and French worked together to fight the Germans in the Atlantic and the seas that surrounded Europe. The British and French were able to create a blockade that prevented German naval movements, but this victory was short-lived. The Germans were successful on the European continent, and they scored a shocking blow in 1940 when they rolled through Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. The British were facing their own problems with the Germans at Dunkirk, a city in northern France. The British were desperate to get their forces across the English Channel to be home and defend Britain, which had been under attack from the German Luftwaffe, or German Air Force. These problems allowed Germany to have an upper hand, and in 1940, Italy made things far more difficult by siding with Germany. Italy and Germany were able to cause problems in the Mediterranean, and they also made things impossible for the British at the Suez Canal. The British had their backs against the wall, and things were looking absolutely bleak at times. The Germans hoped their U-boats or submarines would cut off the English Channel and stop all supplies coming into Britain, and their hope was to starve the country. However, the British weren't going to surrender. They pushed back and received help in 1941, when Canada sent ships and planes over for assistance in the war effort. This allowed for a safer transatlantic convoy for the Allies. And another big victory for the Allies was the sinking of the German battleship Bismarck. The Bismarck was Nazi Germany's pride and joy battleship. It was launched in 1939 and was supposed to be their most feared weapon on the seas. The Bismarck was heavily clad and had some impressive firepower. It was also the first battleship built by Germany since World War I. It measured over 800 feet, 244 meters, and had a crew of over 2,000 officers and enlisted men. In May 1941, the Bismarck was given the mission to destroy ships that were bringing valuable supplies from the United States to Great Britain. Operation Rheinübung was the code name for this mission. The British were aware of this mighty ship and sent out a search and destroy team. However, the Bismarck made zero impact on the Battle of the Atlantic because the ship was destroyed by the British. Another issue the Axis powers faced was the involvement of the United States. Around 1941, the US sent some of their World War I battleships to Britain, and they also deployed their ships to areas of the North Atlantic like Iceland and Greenland. The United States naval vessels also protected ships traveling to and from the US. Germany made a critical decision in 1941 that would backfire. They chose to invade the Soviet Union. Germany and the Soviet Union had signed a non-aggression pact in the 1930s. But Germany decided to surprise attack the Soviet Union and take them out. The Germans would be stuck in a difficult and frustrating battle with the Soviet Union from 1941 until 1942. The Germans also had to move ships toward the Soviet Union at various locations. The United States declared war on Japan in December 1941, and Germany and Italy declared war against the US that same month. Germany attacked US convoy vessels in the Atlantic and did enough damage to frustrate the Americans. The US sent ships to the North Atlantic and to the Mediterranean for support. Meanwhile, the Canadians were able to defend positions close to the US, Canada, and other locations that were deemed important. By 1943, the Allies had pushed Germany boats back in the Atlantic. The fighting was still fierce, and the struggle included North Africa and the Mediterranean. As the fighting continued from 1944 until 1945, the Germans were getting pushed back and facing multiple defeats on land and the sea. The United States would face naval battles in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And the same can be said about the British. The Canadian Navy patrolled portions of the Canadian and US waters. There are some great stories of what happened in the Atlantic theater when it comes to naval warfare. Some of these battles occurred in the North Sea and the Baltic Sea between 1941 and 1945. What's your favorite World War II era vessel? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. 2. A tricky situation. In World War I, the United States provided supplies to the British. However, the US would eventually enter that war to turn the tide in favor of Britain and their allies. World War II saw something similar with the United States. In 1939, the US passed the Neutrality Act that stated that American ships weren't permitted to carry any water material that was purchased with cash by belligerent countries. 2 years later, the United States passed the Lend-Lease Act of 1941 that stated that the US was permitted to lend or lease war supplies to nations vital to the defense of the United States. Merchant mariners on the seas were some of the first Americans to see combat during World War II. Their ships were attacked by the Germans in the Atlantic. One incident involved a ship called the SS Charles Pratt, which was torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Africa in 1940. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided to build specific cargo ships that could hold war material. These were called Liberty ships, and within a year, the United States allowed their merchant ships to be armed. But even though they were armed, German U-boats still attacked. a Japanese submarine sank a U.S. vessel in the Pacific on December 7, 1941. This wasn't a military ship at Pearl Harbor, but a merchant ship transporting lumber. As the United States entered World War II, merchant vessels were taken over by the War Shipping Administration, and their role was to serve as a temporary war agency responsible for acquiring control over and operating all American merchant vessels other than those assigned to the Army and Navy. According to the National World War II Museum, in 1942, the United States dispatched 350 vessels as members of Allied convoys in the Atlantic, leading to the Germans sinking almost 100 ships and causing the loss of numerous sailors and naval gunners' lives. 1. The Miransk Run. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1942, the Soviets asked the Allies for supplies in their war efforts. Two ports that the Allies could get to were Archangel and Murmansk. These Soviet port cities weren't in the easiest of locations. They were in the frigid waters of the Barents Sea, which is located in the Arctic Ocean. Transportation ships full of supplies were escorted by Allied ships. The trip would be across the North Atlantic, where it would head in the direction of the Arctic Ocean. The weather posed an issue, and there was the obvious danger of ice. However, Germany had occupied Norway and was using the Scandinavian country and had ships and planes there ready to attack Allied vessels. Mines had also been placed in the sea, so the journey was treacherous. This was no easy task. There were dangers going to these Soviet port cities like Murmansk. But once they reached their destination, things still weren't safe. In fact, ships could be attacked in the harbor by U-boat or by air. Then there was the journey home, which was just as difficult. Those who braved the waters lived on edge, and the threat of constant attack was always there. To better understand the dangers of these voyages, one can review the German attack on convoy PQ-17 during the summer of 1942. Some 35 merchant ships were followed by 11 escort vessels. They'd set sail from Iceland and were headed to the port of Archangel with important supplies for the Soviets. However, PQ-17 dealt with an attack from the Germans once they got close to Norway. German aircraft and vessels, along with difficult weather conditions, made life for PQ-17 a living nightmare. The attacks seemed to be a constant issue, and the Germans were able to sink 12 of the 35 merchant vessels in just one day. Then, to make matters even worse, 2 battleships were called away. Another problem arose when the remaining escort vessels were contacted to seek a big German battleship that was sent out to destroy the convoy. The convoy of merchant ships were left to fend for themselves, and they were told to scatter to avoid German attacks. The convoy was separated, and it was an incredibly tense and dangerous trip for the rest of the way. Only 11 of the merchant vessels made their way to Archangel. It was a major loss of supplies and human lives. In total, some 153 people died during the ordeal. What was frustrating for the British is that the ships that were called away to deal with a massive German battleship discovered it was false information. The Allies faced an incredibly tough battle, and important supplies were lost. Convoy PQ-18 was the next convoy sent to the Soviet Union. Their journey began on September 2, 1941, when they left Loch Ewe, Scotland, for the Soviet Union. Like PQ-17, they were headed for Archangel, and there were 40 merchant ships with an equal number of escort ships. From September 12th until September 21st, the ships were attacked by German planes and ships. Some floating mines in the seas also caused a great deal of damage. The Germans were able to take down 13 of the merchant ships. But this attack came at a cost for the Germans. They lost somewhere between 24 and 44 aircraft, as well as 4 U-boats. A storm made things more difficult for convoy PQ-18 because it caused some of the ships to run aground. This, of course, slowed down the convoy, but the ships were rescued. It was December 1942 when an Allied convoy left Loch Ewe, Scotland for Murmansk. There were approximately 15 transport ships carrying a variety of supplies from aircraft to armored vehicles and from food to fuel. These supplies were desperately needed by the Soviets, and the Allies were ready to get those supplies to them, come hell or high water. Those 15 ships were under the protection of the British Royal Navy. According to an article from Warbird Fanatics, the British Royal Navy's fleet was composed of 6 destroyers, 2 light cruisers, 2 corvettes, 2 trawlers, and a minesweeper. As the ships moved north toward the Norwegian Sea, they hit a particularly nasty storm, throwing some of the ships off course. It was important for the transport ships to get back with the British fleet because they were sitting ducks if spotted by the Germans. But the Germans were in occupied Norway, and a U-boat near Altenfjord spotted the fleet and the transport ships. The U-boat radioed in the information, causing every available German ship to attack the British fleet and the transportation vessels. This was just the beginning of a major battle. It was no surprise that the Germans were looking for this convoy. It was all part of Operation Regenbogen, otherwise known as Operation Rainbow. This was a plan of Germany's to attack the Allied ships in the area on their way to Miransk. Their orders were to take out the Allied ships, but they weren't supposed to take any unnecessary risks. Eventually, the transportation ships and the British fleet were reunited. It was a major sigh of relief for both the transportation ships and the fleet. The Germans were still on the hunt, though. The British spotted 2 German vessels not that long after they were spotted by the U-boat, prompting the Germans to open fire. But the British laid down a smoke screen so the transports wouldn't be visible to German battleships. The battle turned out to be a victory for the British, since they didn't lose a single transportation vessel. However, the British lost 3 ships and 250 individuals were killed. The Germans, on the other hand, lost 2 ships as well as 330 men. But in the end, the transportation convoy made its way to Murmansk and the supplies were unloaded for the Soviets. It's reported that this incident infuriated the Germans and they changed their attacks to U-boats only. The efforts of defending transportation ships across the Atlantic Ocean is overlooked in World War II history. Many merchants risked their lives working on unarmed ships to deliver supplies to the Soviet Union. Enemy aircraft, battleships, and U-boats were hunting these vessels. Sometimes the vessels made it safely, but other times they were sunk in the Atlantic or Arctic Oceans, coming to rest at the bottom of the sea. Do you know any other stories of bravery on the seas you'd like us to make a video about? Let us know down below in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.